Welcome back to another episode of Bandology. This is Cody. Today, my special guest is a band called Syrens, who started out as William Bonney, metalcore band from the DFW area that came around the scene in 2004 or 2005. I remember seeing them at a show and thinking they were so brutal. But these guys couldn't be nicer. I'm so excited to have talked with them. I got Terry, the vocalist, and Chance, the guitar player of both bands, and they're here to talk about the history, and they tell some funny stories, so sit back and enjoy the episode. Syrens started out as William Bonney. Can you tell me a little bit about that band?
Okay, I'll take that one. William Bonney actually started a little bit before Chance joined the band. Chance was in a band previously called Veray, and I had been in William Bonney maybe 6 to 8 months prior with a good friend of his, Thomas Rogers, and we started William Bonney together. We were actually kind of like early 2000s metalcore, kind of like a It Dies Today or As Lay Dying or Still Remains kind of thing when we first started. And then we played a few shows with Chance's band Veray, and they were more along the lines of what Thomas and I wanted to do. And we kind of hit it off playing shows together, and things just kind of happened, and Chance had left that band, and he was at the top of my list for guitar players that I wanted to have, because our guitar player, besides Thomas, had left for, I think, school. I don't really remember. But Chance was at the top of the list, and it just happened to work out. So the iteration of William Bonney that you saw is the one that most people would know. But Bonney had existed about half a year prior to that.
Like you said, I was in a band called Veray before that. And then I actually remember the first time I went and saw William Bonney before I was even in the band. It was like a church show, I think. And it was even the first time that I ever actually saw Terry in person, which I'm sure you and I had been at the same shows most of our lives. Mm-hmm. We frequented the same clubs and liked the same bands when we were a lot younger. But I just remember going into the show and hanging out, watching William Bonney, and then seeing this kid in creepers screaming and then falling down some stairs right in front of me, and I was like, that's really cool. So yeah. And then Thomas and I went to high school together, and that's how we became friends. We actually met in driver's ed, sitting in the back of a car. And back then he was wearing some like flame shoes, like boots, and some Metallica shirts. He's a pretty cool guy. Still is.
Oh, yeah. So I actually remember the first thing that Chance and I really connected on, I think maybe at that show, because you were hanging out with Thomas, is we both really liked this band, Officer Negative. But Officer Negative was a huge deal for me, because I grew up in the punk scene, and then I switched into heavier music because of my dad, actually. But I primarily played in punk bands and stuff, and so when I was in William Bonney, actually, I think you were wearing an Officer Negative shirt, perhaps. I don't know.
Probably. I wore
that Death Campaign back jacket, maybe. But we really connected on Officer Negative, and that was a really cool thing, because not many people know about that band.
I actually got to see the Death Campaign play at Cornerstone 2003, but I never got to see Officer Negative.
I was at that show.
Were you really?
Yep, that was my first Cornerstone.
That was my only Cornerstone.
That was a huge part of my life. I went for about 10 years, and then I was at the last Cornerstone in 2012.
Yeah, that had some really great shows that year. Me Without You played twice on the main stage. They were incredible. I mean, we could talk forever about that show, but I want to keep it to William Bonney. I remember you had a website advertising a DVD that featured an intense breakdown. What was that, and why didn't William Bonney ever record anything?
Well, we thought this was pre-YouTube even, I think, or it was really early on. Bands weren't really doing webisodes or DVDs or anything like that. And again, Thomas, our guitar player, was into a lot of excuse me, graphic design, video, and we thought it would be a funny idea to make this fake movie to a DVD that would never actually come out. We thought it would be an interesting promo campaign, I guess. And we took 2 audio files from 2 sets at the door, and we just layered them on top of each other, and that was it. It was random shots of us like lighting fireworks or driving in the van and doing, nonsense that you do when you're in your teens or whatever, and really bad live audio. And for some reason, here I am, 30 years old, still being asked about that breakdown. In fact, that breakdown, the lyrics, the "oh yeah" part or whatever, that was just me making fun of, I think, Lil Jon at the time, like at practice. And we just thought that was really funny. And we never really took ourselves too seriously. We still don't. But that's all that is. And for some reason, that's what everybody knew about William Bonney.
So I went to a William Bonney show, and the only thing that I remember from this show, aside from the fact that you guys were brutal, was there was blood coming out of your mouths. Can you explain that?
Yeah, well, kind of, I guess. we were really dramatic, just obnoxious people, but we also really liked horror movies and over-the-top B movies and just any sort of horror, anything, I'm a huge fan of the Evil Dead series, so the more gore, the better.
Did you like the new one?
Oh, yeah. I did.
Great.
And I love Ash vs. Evil Dead. I've been keeping up with that, so it's good stuff. But really, to be honest with you, Dan Wyatt is the inspiration for that from Zao. And that Cornerstone 2003, which is the year that Dan walked out on stage in a white T-shirt covered in blood.
Yeah.
And that image is ingrained in my memory and always will be. And I thought, man, that would be really cool to do something like that on a local scale. So we would take each show and try to do something shocking. Maybe the blood, or maybe, makeup, like just lipstick smeared on our face or something, which is super silly now. But at the time, stuff like 18 Visions was a big deal for me. And that dude, the singer of that band, was really blurring some lines as far as what was acceptable within hardcore. Still is. I mean, they're back together and killing it, which is awesome. But they were a big inspiration. Zao was a big inspiration. Just, film, all kinds of things. We just wanted to be that band that stood out amongst the rest of the lineup at any local show at all costs.
Well, I still remember it 15 years later.
There you go.
So it worked.
Then mission accomplished.
So
yeah.
Speaking of... I was going to say real quick, speaking of Zao and Dan Wyatt coming out on stage covered in blood, I was there with a buddy of mine who was a very devout Christian, and he said, I remember specifically, he said, I hope that signifies that he's covered by the blood of Christ, because anything else is just not cool.
Oh, that's great.
And I actually recorded that show, and it's up on YouTube right now. You can watch the whole thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah. I was also a huge Zao fan, so yeah, that's a cool story. So when did William Bonney call it quits, and when did Syrens begin?
Well, William Bonney ended probably the beginning of my senior year of high school. Well, technically, we became this band called Abandoned Ship. It was the same band, but the whole Norma Jean thing, the name thing, was kind of really big at that point, and we hated being compared to Norma Jean. I I mean, we sounded exactly like them. I don't know what we expected. But, like, let's be honest. But we were like, let's change our name to something nautical, which also became super trendy. So we were abandoned ship for a little while. We tried to make that work. That didn't work due to, at that point, people are graduating high school, going into college. Big time in your life. Everyone goes their separate ways and does separate things. So that summer, after my senior year of high school, we started this band called Iris. Iris was Syrens, essentially. The beginnings of that name.
We actually changed the name from Iris to Syrens because of some guy, I think he's like Australian or something, goes by Iris, and he apparently was really big or something. So
yeah, he was an EDM artist at the time. Abandoned Ship ended my senior year, and then Syrens began in the summer of 2006. We picked up some of my old friends that used to be in a band called The Resistance, and a few other friends of mine from Crowley. It's a small town of South Fort Worth. And Chance and I had been in William Bonney, and I mentioned him to be in the band. We had a guitar player already, 2 guitar players already, but we didn't have a bass at all. And so I was like, well, I really want Chance to be in this band, but we already gave our guitar spot to somebody else. So I told him, hey, man, I know you don't play bass, but are you willing to try? And he came over that day, and my dad put together a makeshift rig for him because we practiced at my parents' house at the time, and that was that. We had me, Chance, 2 guitar players, our drummer Ricky Rivera, who was also in William Bonney, one of the best drummers I've ever played with, and I don't think he gets enough credit, to be honest, especially with the history of Syrens or William Bonney. He was an amazing drummer. And we had a synth player named Crash, and he was really good too. But it wasn't like under oathy synth. He was really into bands like Genghis Tron, and he was influenced by the keyboardists from Neurosis a lot. And we thought that would be really cool to have more atmospheric type synth stuff with, I guess, more technical, grindier metalcore. And that's what Syrens started out as, is that type of mixture of metalcore and grind, I guess.
So basically all of the members in Syrens were either friends of yours already or were members of William Bonney?
We're really good at getting buddies together, just jamming. We like to keep it in the family, if you will.
We've always been pretty big on, keeping your friends close no matter what. And, if we ever need to call on somebody in the future, I'm very happy to say that most of the people that I've jammed with would be willing to come back. And that's always a good feeling. And having that friendship where you can just pick up right where you left off, and also going on that musical journey together is fun. And I don't know, it is pretty cool. There is a rotating cast of characters, but everyone is always welcome back into the fold. And I think I can speak for everybody when I say that.
So what is it like, choosing band members that have the same musical influences or the same ideas of what they want to do musically? Does it always work out, or?
Well, that was the thing, especially with Syrens. William Bonney, yes, we had a lot of the same tastes, but with Syrens, it was almost purposeful that we picked individuals that didn't have the same taste as ourselves. Like Chance and I really tended to agree on a lot of things, but our lead guitar player Bobby, he was extremely into like Between the Buried and Me and like Into the Moat and like technical stuff. Albert, our other guitar player, was really into Circus Survive and Glassjaw. Ricky, our drummer, was really into a lot of melodic hardcore bands at that time, like With Honor and Final Fight and like Killing the Dream and stuff. So taking all of those influences and putting it into a melting pot was the experiment that became Syrens, and I think it worked out. It caused a bit of butting heads, but I say all in all, it was a mission accomplished for that experiment. So
I think doing that gave us a unique perspective on things. I think allowing these different musical tastes and backgrounds to kind of blend together is what I felt, and some people may not agree, but made Iris and later on Syrens to be a pretty truly unique band as far as what we did. Mm-hmm. I think our musical influence definitely shined through, but I think in the process we kind of created, I don't want to say our own genre because that makes us sound very braggy, but just something really unique, something that not a lot of bands were doing at the time. So
here's something unique that I noticed whenever I listened to those Siren tracks is there's one song in particular that you sent me where, it's metalcore, but then there's this one part where there's a wah-wah pedal solo being played. And I thought that was so interesting because you don't hear that in metalcore, or at least I've never heard that in metalcore, so it was definitely original. How do you come up with things like that? How do you come up with marriages of different styles to put in the same song like that?
Well, I think within the writing process, it was more not let's sound like this band or that band, but I have this riff or this feeling that I want to emote, and how do we accomplish that? If you decide to break down the barriers of genre, not to sound pretentious, but you take away all of those genres and just write a song, how do you accomplish that? And really, the limitations of genres are the things that ruin a lot of bands, I think. And we just wanted to create feelings and emotions through music, and then with the accompaniment of my lyrics. And a lot of the time, in the early days of Syrens especially, I would write some poems that became our lyrics, and we would write music to accomplish what we thought that song was saying. We wanted to speak with our songs as well as lyrics, even if you couldn't comprehend what I was yelling at the kids at that time. So
So you mentioned that there was butting of heads. What did songwriting look like for you guys? Did you collaborate more, or was it one of you had an idea that you brought? How did that work?
It was a lot of kind of a lot of everything, you know. Sometimes we would sit down and be like, you know, we need to write this song or we need to do this, but most of the time it'd be like, hey, I got this cool riff, or Terry's like, hey, I've got this cool line, let's write, you know, a riff around it, or our drummers would be like, hey, I created this cool like syncopated pattern or something, and so they'd start playing it, and then we jam on it, and then that would just kind of mold itself into a section of a song. I know historically we're really into kind of cutting and pasting things around. So we'll have riffs and things like, you know, it doesn't work here, let's put it over here. And the way our songs are structured, it's like storytelling, and it's like different chapters throughout each little section. So they kind of become their own unique pieces. So we can kind of pull them and place them in different spots. And it just creates this really cool linear kind of just situation. So that's it.
So you would agree with that, Terry?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we already talked a little bit about what William Bonney's shows look like. Did you guys carry the same theatrics over to Syrens shows, or what did those look like?
Those where William Bonney was more dramatic with imagery and flashiness, I guess. Syrens was literally like pouring out our hearts on stage. At that time, I got really heavily into early to mid '90s screamo music, like Page 99, Jerome's Dream, Orchid, and then like later bands like Circle Takes the Square. And I loved the attitude, like the ferocity that they had, but they could still write with feeling and emotion, and they left everything on the stage. And I think if you went to a Syrens show, we really meant every single thing we said, and every single note. We felt it 100%. So I think that a lot of the themes, a lot of the lyrics, the music, because we were all hanging out constantly and always writing and always collaborating, everyone had a hand in every single one of those songs to some extent. I think we all just gave it our emotional all, especially, and it was something unique for that time period, at least in the DFW area. Granted, we didn't sound like those bands I mentioned, but the feeling of that type of scene and those types of bands, I think we achieved that kind of show.
Speaking of being in the DFW area, what town would you say you're from? Because when I saw you, it was in Sherman, Texas, and I thought maybe you might be a Sherman, Texas band at that time, but I think I'm wrong on that. I think you guys are from the Dallas area.
We're actually from the, I would say the South Fort Worth area, because we practiced at Terry's house for years, and that was kind of our home base. So, and that was in Crowley, which is about 15 minutes south of downtown Fort Worth.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys ever go out on tour?
Yes.
Syrens, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the first incarnation of Syrens did not. But then we, around 2007, I think.
2007.
Late 2007? Yeah. Because, we did Cornerstone 07, and we toured around then. That's right. Mm-hmm. So almost a year into our existence, we started trying to do smaller tours. The surrounding states, etc. And then we ventured out to Cornerstone for Cornerstone 2007, and that was a very big deal for me because that Cornerstone was everything to me. That was the mecca, right, for especially Christian artists at that time. And so playing it was something I always wanted to do. As a kid, a dream of mine while reading HM Magazine was to, be signed to Solid State Records and play. I at least got to do one of those. So
yeah,
that was a really good time. We didn't need money. We still lived at home, and everything was great. But then once we started, growing up, needing to make money for a living, moving out, we took touring way more seriously. We got a new lineup because people, again, they went to school or didn't want to tour full time. So once we started touring full time, the band shifted with new members. We had Chance on bass still, me on vocals, Bryce Lucian on guitar, who is now in the band Seeker. And then we had a few different drummers, but the drummer that toured with us the most was Dustin. Dustin was in the band for the longest time. And we toured pretty relentlessly for a few years there. Do you want to elaborate on that, Chance?
It was a lot of tour dates. No, we did. We toured. We did a lot in Texas, and then we did. We never really went west too far. We like to stay in the Midwest, and then we went to the East Coast for a little while, and that was pretty interesting adventures over there. Probably some of my favorite adventures out of all of our touring. That in New Mexico. New Mexico's got some good stories too, but we'll get to that later. It was pretty cool because we got it down to just a 4-piece. We were a 5-piece for a while. We had 2 guitar players, but then we decided to keep it at 4. We felt it kind of made our songwriting process a little more lean, a little quicker, and it felt right. We never felt as good with a 5-piece as we did with a 4-piece. And I never went back to guitar because once I started playing bass, I realized that that's kind of where my heart was at. I really liked playing bass. So it was kind of a serendipitous thing to even be asked to play bass when I didn't even have gear at the time, and I was just kind of figuring out as I went along, and I always played bass kind of like I played guitar, just really hard and heavy, distorted. And I think that's what kind of helped it with the 4-piece. So
you mentioned that in New Mexico, you had some interesting stories. So what do you got for me?
Well, there was the show. Actually, the best story was we played a show. It was a house show, and later we learned that it was some people squatting there. So they didn't own the house, and we kind of figured this out because there wasn't running water, and they were siphoning electricity off, I think, the neighbors.
Yeah.
But it was just really interesting because it was a backyard show. They had some weird fire dancers for no reason, and they were clearly amateur, clearly new to the fire dancing game, I guess, because they lit a patch of the backyard on fire. And then this is unverified, but someone told me that they were growing weed in their closet. Because they had broken through the foundation to get to the soil and were just growing it out of the ground.
Oh my gosh!
So It was a pretty interesting show. Probably one of our best turnouts. We had 10 people. So
where was that show at?
Portales, I believe.
How do you remember that?
Because when you have a name like Portales and it's that just crappy of a show, it kind of sticks with me.
I do remember.
Wasn't that with My America?
Yeah, that was with My America and North, and I don't think Ring Bearer was on that part of the tour, were they? Or no. They joined later, right?
Yeah.
Also, on that same run, that was when we played that weird fest in Santa Fe with Earth Crisis, Walls of Jericho, right, or something.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And and they got mad at us. I think Earth Crisis was mad at us because we weren't vegan or something like that. I don't remember. It was not our scene at all. Even though I like that band, it was just really funny to have us on a bill like that.
So I told one, you tell one, Terry.
Okay, my favorite one. That first Cornerstone, we met a band. At Cornerstone 07, we met some band. I wish I remembered their name. They were really sweet guys. And they invited us to play their venue in St. Louis. So when we went on tour, they booked us, as they said they would, which was great. But at that time, St. Louis had the largest delivered pizza that you could actually purchase and have them deliver it to your home.
It was called the Pointersaurus.
Was it? Oh, okay. Well, so we decided that it would be a good idea to purchase said pizza and eat it all in one sitting. So we showed up at this venue before anybody else, and Chance has a really bad gag reflex. So we pull up, we kill the whole pizza, and I'm not kidding. It's like 4 feet by like 4 feet. The thing is gigantic.
Holy shit.
So you've got your conversion van, right? Your standard conversion van. If you open both doors, we still had to tilt the pizza sideways to get through the door.
That's incredible.
It was gnarly. So we get to the venue, and we're just dying at this point. And I decided it'd be a good idea to put my fingers down my throat and try to throw up on Chance. So, unbeknownst to us, this group of sweet guys that we met at the previous Cornerstone, they walk out to meet us, and Chance has jumped out of the van, and I think we're blaring Cowboys from Hell by Pantera. And I'm putting my fingers down my throat, making myself throw up, which is making Chance throw up, which is making Bryce throw up, which is making our drummer at the time, Grant, throw up. And we're running around in circles in this parking lot, throwing up on each other to Cowboys from Hell, and just laughing hysterically. And hi guys, thanks for booking us. Where do we set up? And I could see the look of horror on their faces, being like, "Oh, why do we book these idiots from Texas?" It was amazing. So that's one of my favorite moments for sure.
That's hilarious.
I hope that you
think, is there any other ridiculous stories?
We almost got shot in New Jersey.
We almost got shot in New Jersey, so we rolled up to the show. It was like a hardcore show. And we get out and we find out that for whatever reason we weren't on the bill anymore. And so Grant, our drummer at the time, again, got pretty, peeved off about it. So he went up and was trying to confront the promoter or the, guy running the show. And I guess he had a gun on him or something. I don't remember exactly, but it was a pretty sketchy situation.
Yeah, so we obviously left because we got a gun pulled out on us, and we headed back west, and I think we stayed at this hotel. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chance, but it was a hotel on some mountain in Pennsylvania. And
it was it was in the middle of the Poconos Mountains.
That's right.
It was snowing.
2 or 3 days to kill, and all we had was an Arby's and a Love's truck stop. And we were losing our minds by the end of that time. I felt like Jack Torrance in The Shining towards the end.
You guys are from Texas. You should have been packing. Okay, that guy from New Jersey shouldn't have even stood a chance.
Right? Because we're stereotypical Texan.
Yeah. I
can't see it right now, but I got shorts on and cowboy boots. So
I could shoot him with my Hornet spray that I have. I don't know about my gun, but
no. So one more story for me. So
sure.
So one of my favorite stories ever was we stayed at this house in Missouri. I can't remember the city. The house was disgusting. Pretty sure it was haunted. And it was just a bad time. I think it was like a bad show the night before, gross house, real sketchy people that we were staying with. And then we're driving out of town, and this is not an exaggeration. Terry looks at everybody and says, "This town cannot get any worse." And the second he said that, we see this kid on a skateboard. He's probably 7, 8 years old. He's riding on a skateboard down the street and then just stops and pukes all over the sidewalk. And for whatever reason, that's the hardest I've laughed probably ever. So
he had some of that pizza.
Yeah.
But I don't know why that one stuck in my head so much, but I think about it probably a couple times a day.
You meet some really interesting people, and you see a lot of really crazy things on the road,
Yeah.
And it really makes doing that worth it, because you have these stories that you can look back on and laugh about for a lifetime. Some kid who's a man now, was riding a skateboard and puked, and you thought it was the funniest thing ever, and he probably doesn't even remember it.
Exactly.
So, who did Syrens record with, and what was the experience like?
We recorded with a guy. I don't remember his name.
Chris,
it was a house.
Chris?
Was it Chris?
I think. It sounds familiar. Why not?
We'll call him Chris Cross.
Yes.
Christopher. And we recorded at his house. And I remember Dustin doing all of the drums in one day, and then we had to play a show that night. Mm-hmm. So he was exhausted. And I don't know. I mean, it was pretty cool. It was very rushed. I think in hindsight, I wish we had taken a little more time on that album.
Yeah.
But I still think it was really good.
Yeah, that was the only record. The self-titled record was the only one we did as a signed band when we were touring full time. And I agree. I think the recording of that record leaves a lot to be desired, I think. The material we put out before that, our EP that was just titled 3, that record was really some of the best material I think we ever put out. And so to follow it with self-titled, I still think those songs are really great. I just don't think the production did it any justice. But that's just me. I still like that record. I still listen to it. I'm proud of it, but I think, it was definitely rushed. We had a deadline we had to meet to put it out, and the songwriting was taking a little bit longer than we anticipated. So it was definitely a stressful process, to say the least.
Yeah, for sure.
Who are you guys signed with?
It was a small independent label called Cavity Records. They were really good to us, though, and they gave us a connection to a good PR company that helped us get a lot of interviews that we shouldn't have had. They got us into a lot of magazines that we shouldn't have been in, and on tours that we shouldn't have been on. So it was nice, but they are they're a smaller independent label, but they had bands that we liked, like that band North that I mentioned earlier. They also had that band, was it Giants, that really cool post-rock band?
I believe so. I think
that's right. Those were two of the bands that interested us to sign with them, and the fact that we could just do one record at a time was cool. They let us sign for one record and then an option for another. Unfortunately, we broke up right after that record cycle ended, so we didn't get to record a second with them. But they were cool. They were really good to us, and we got to hook up with a lot of bands that we looked up to big time at that time, like bands like Don the Reader. They were a big deal for us. Destroyer, Gaza, My America, not Architects from the UK, but this band out of, I think, Syracuse called Architect. They sound a lot like Coalesce, kind of. And then even Sean Ingram from Coalesce did our pre-order package with his merch company. That was a big deal for me because he's one of my heroes.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, so all in all, it was a great experience. I can't complain about that at all. It was a good time.
So the songs that you put on the EP3, are those the ones that you sent me, two of those songs?
Yeah, they were Tower of Snakes, Poison Begat Poison, and Dinner of Thieves.
Okay.
Those were the three songs we put out, I guess, in that transitional period from being more of a spazzier band to adding a bit more atmosphere and more post-rock elements. I'm really into this Japanese band called Envy, and we also were really into This Will Destroy You and like Godspeed You Black Emperor and stuff. So we wanted to put a little bit of, I guess, that whole post-metal thing into what we already had and maybe write better song structures and not just go crazy all the time.
You said that you guys broke up after your LP came out. How long after the LP came out did you break up?
A year, maybe?
Yes, around there. Maybe 9 months to a year.
you've mentioned a couple of times that you were really big on all these Christian bands. You really that you were really inspired by bands like Zao. So I'm guessing that William Bonney, Syrens, were those bands where you wanted to share your faith? Were they quote unquote Christian bands? What was the correlation there?
Maybe to a fault. Yeah, we were very, very much a Christian band. All of those bands. I was again, I was raised by that whole spirit-filled movement, and I got saved at a Christian show, and bands like Unashamed or Strong Arm and all those spirit-filled bands were people that I really looked up to. And then moving forward, bands like Embodiment locally, or Evelyn, or whoever. So I wanted to do that with my life, and I felt it was very necessary to talk about what I believed in. I liked a lot of hardcore and the way that hardcore allowed people to speak about their beliefs, whether it be veganism, straight edge, or just their community. So I took that idea and really ran with it for Christianity at that time. But looking back, it was something I truly thought was a good idea. But whenever you're shoving an agenda down someone's throat, it's never a positive thing. And I tend to be more of a very liberal Christian, I guess. So being associated with Christianity a lot of the time gave people a bad taste in their mouth, or maybe some preconceived notions of what I stand for or what I believe in. And honestly, I probably can relate to people that are atheists a lot more than I can a lot of quote unquote Christians. So, it hurt us a lot. I think a lot of tours and a lot of shows were denied us because we were so outspoken with our faith from the stage. And at the time we thought that was necessary, but looking back, I think that burned more bridges and didn't accomplish what we thought we were achieving at that time. I don't know. What do you think, Chance?
I agree. I think that it's difficult to be in that genre to begin with those beliefs, just traditionally. And I think, especially with how passionate we were on stage, I think it, like Terry said, it put a lot of sour taste in people's mouths, especially some of the other bands. We have some snide comments from certain people and get made fun of, or people didn't respect us as much or whatever. But that was our conviction at the time. So we, didn't really care.
Yeah. One show in particular, we were at Greensboro, North Carolina, I think, at a skate park. And there was this band, I won't mention their name, but I really respected them. And, I was speaking about, whatever it was that I was feeling at the time about my faith, or about just how I was feeling that day. And I could see them mocking me and making fun of me from the stage, and that really bummed me out. And there was a band that is now a lot bigger, and they've broken up recently, but this band For Today was on that show with us as well. And I remember their singer Maddie talked to me after that set and asked why I was visibly upset, and he asked why I was upset, and I told him, and he actually went on this 30-minute sermon about not judging your brothers and stuff. And I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing, but I really appreciated that, and I thought it was really cool that he's stood up for me and didn't know me at all. So I don't really care for that band's music or anything, but I thought that was really cool, and I'll always remember that. But again, I don't know if that was the right thing to do, but at the time it sure felt right. I felt like I was making a difference, and maybe we did, maybe we didn't. I don't know, but I guess still, I don't think I would do it any differently. No regrets, right? You can't change the past. We did what we did, and going forward, I don't know if I will continue to be that way, but I am proud of what we were and what we did at that time.
Would you guys say that faith still plays a pretty strong role in the music that you're creating today or in your daily life?
It's different. It's different because we're older. We've been in the world a little longer. We've decided what we actually believe instead of what our parents raised us in. You know, the further away from being at home and raised a certain way politically or having a certain religious background or what have you. And finally, when you become a man, you get to decide that for yourself. And yeah, faith will always be there to an extent with me, but I think more or less it's love. That's the thing that I focus more on, and community and family and friends and making a difference. I mean, I can't make a difference unless I present myself in a certain way, unless I'm being a force for change, a force of positive change. And if that's someone's definition of God, then great. But no, I'm not shoving Bible verses down anyone's throats these days. I do consider myself a believer, but I don't know if I consider myself a Christian. I have a hard time associating myself with that label. I think that it's a very negative thing. It's a very hurtful thing to some people, and some of the ideals of Christianity, especially westernized Christianity, really bother me. So I have a hard time with that label. I am a believer. I am a follower of Christ still, but I don't think I can call myself a Christian.
That's a lot. That's a lot to take in.
Sorry.
No, it's great, actually.
Can you talk about Pee Wee Herman? I like him a lot.
I do cool. Too. Did you see his new special?
I did, and it's awesome.
It is awesome. No, that's great. I think it's important for people to hear that kind of stuff, that perspective, for sure, especially coming from a band that was a Christian band. And I don't know if you know anything about me or my past bands or anything, but I was also in a Christian band where our whole motive was to preach the gospel, get people saved. I mean, that was the job. That's the whole reason for the band. And in hindsight, I really wish we hadn't done that.
Yeah.
It's the same. It's kind of the same thing. I think that you were saying, I think you and I can kind of relate a lot. It's weird because if I would have asked myself 15 years ago if there was a God, there would have been no question, and you would have been a heretic for even questioning it. Right. And nowadays I'm like, I don't know, maybe. And it's just it's strange. It's a strange place to be in.
And that was the hardest part for us, I think, as Syrens, because we were always too Christian for the quote unquote secular world, but we were always too secular for the quote unquote Christian scene. I don't feel like we ever got a lot of love from either side. So being bred in that culture put a bad taste in our mouth, I think, as well.
Yeah. So you mentioned that there was an unreleased song called "The Vultures Will Be Back by Morning." Why was that unreleased?
So Syrens broke up at the end of 2009, and I decided to continue to beat a dead horse and brought the band back for a fourth time. No, I really wanted to give Syrens one last shot before I settled down, and I wanted to tour and stuff. So I put together another lineup of dudes. I was the only original member at that point, and we recorded a full record. But unfortunately, it never was released. We never found a home for it, or I don't know what it was. There was just a lot of complications, but a few of those songs exist on the internet somewhere. I was able to find that one. There's maybe two more somewhere in cyberspace, but they just never found a home.
I've been alone, all along, expecting you to turn your back. Rainbow flashback with backward faces, empty innocent like a thought, like question. Never committed to anything at all. When friends turn to foe, all loyalty's lost, all loyalty's lost. I'll be the one, all that's on every
I wanted to find a new label to release it on and tour and stuff, but it just wasn't financially there for me to do it. I was getting older, and my then girlfriend at the time, we just got engaged, so I wanted to settle down and all of that. So yeah, things happen, life gets in the way. But yeah, I just, at that point in my quote unquote career, I couldn't tour anymore, and those guys that I hooked up with were really young, and they wanted to tour full time, and I couldn't do it. So that unfortunately fizzled out. And Syrens, I finally put to bed for the final time at that point.
So what is this new project I'm hearing about called Phantom Limb?
So Phantom Limb is something that I've been working on for quite some time. Now that I have, my home life, I have a job, a family, I obviously don't want to tour full time anymore, but I'm a lifer. I'm always going to play music. I decided to put together a new project, and I've been taking my time with it, but it's coming together really well. Yeah, we have quite a few songs that we're recording, and hopefully we'll release something, if not multiple releases, within the 2018 year.
So do you mind if I give the folks a little preview of that band?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I gave you a demo to a song called Inhale, Exhale. And yeah, by all means.
Chance, are you doing Phantom Limb with Terry or no?
So, interesting story. I was doing Phantom Limb, but my life has gotten insanely busy lately. I've got, an infant son at home, and a job that makes me work a lot and keeps me busy. And we're trying to sell our house and stuff. So I kind of, left it up to the guys in Phantom Limb to find another bass player if they needed, while I get things in my life slowing down, and maybe in the future I'll, get back into it and play with them again. But at the moment, I'm not in the band. I know that Dustin, our drummer from Syrens, is in the band, and I think that's a very important thing because Dustin is an absolutely phenomenal drummer. He literally blows my mind every time I watch him come up with new stuff. I just don't understand how he does it. So
yeah, and like I said at the beginning of the podcast, the door is always open. Friends are always welcome. We have a rotating cast of characters, and I hate the notion of you're out of the band, therefore we'll never play together again. Never say never. We'll see one day, maybe Chance will be back and we'll be jamming again together, and that'll be great. If he's not, that's awesome too. He's always going to be one of my best friends. Scratch that. He is my brother and always will be. So yeah, it's a great time. Phantom Limb has some familiar faces, and we'll see what happens.
Do you have any website or social media that people can look Phantom Limb up on?
Yeah, we have a Facebook and an Instagram under Phantom Limb TX. We will be updating that pretty often, I think, in the future, because we're almost done with the writing process, so I'm going to start posting on there quite a bit. So yeah, you can hit us up on Phantom Limb, on the Phantom Limb TX rather, on Instagram or through Facebook, and say hey. We'll hopefully be playing the show near you soon.
And it's spelled with an F, right?
Yeah. Phantom Limb with an F for sure.
Yeah.
Promote your art, man. That's really good.
Oh yeah, sure. I'll promote my art. I guess I'll plug that. So, if you go to Instagram /Chance Draws, I do a lot of illustration work. So if anybody wants to buy my stupid stuff or wants to collaborate with me on anything, I'm down for that. Follow me and make fun of my stuff.
That's awesome. It's quite often that musicians are also artists. I wonder if there's something to that.
100%. I think so. Yeah.
Well, Terry thinks so. I don't know. I think it's coincidence. In retrospect, everything that we did kind of, became this story that we can pass on to, our families and our children and talk about it. And even though, we weren't this huge band that drew thousands of people every show, I look back on it and I wouldn't take back any second of our experience, no matter how bad it got. And it got pretty bad sometimes. We were broke, we were cold, we'd sleep in a van in a Walmart parking lot, be woken up by gunshots and have to drive away super fast, but that's I think that's what made it so special to us, and especially at the age we did it at. It was a really formative time, in everybody's life. Young adulthood, you're trying to figure everything out, and so having these unique experiences that, if you really think about it, 99% of the world's population will never get those experiences. Most people aren't going to go on tour. Most people aren't going to play, at a bar where the promoter forgot that there was even a show. So you play for free drinks, to the other bands that were booked on that show.
Which
and
we've
maybe
done.
like a do what?
Said which we've done.
We've done that more times than we should have.
Yeah.
But to wrap up my point, it's something that I definitely cherish, and I look back on in fondness, and I miss it sometimes. But we're at an age now where Terry and I both have children, and Terry's got another one on the way, and
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We're old dads now, but it's all good. Now I can tell my son 5 years from now, hey, your dad used to be pretty cool, but not anymore. So
Well, he won't even think that you're cool, because the music he's going to be into is, he's going to think that's what's cool, and your music is trash, is what he's going to think.
exactly, it's just gonna be some guy banging on a trash can and barfing into a sack of potato chips, and that's going to be on the top 100, and that's what he's going to be into. So.
Well, if it weren't for this music, my son wouldn't have his Uncle Chance, and I wouldn't have a lot of these friendships that I'm going to have forever. Some of the best people I ever met was through this band and through that time. And it's awesome. It like he said, I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. It was some of the best times of my life. But I'm not looking back with just too much nostalgia in my eyes. I love my life as it is today. And having a family is the greatest thing ever. But I think my family is quite a bit bigger because of those bonds we made with all those previous band members and tour mates and things like that. There are a lot of bands that we would get booked on, every other week or so. We'd run into the same people because we're all in the same circles, and it was cool. We were like, hey, we'll meet up in 2 weeks or whatever. And some of my best friends live all over the country because they were all on the same touring circuit, and it was awesome. I loved it, and like Chance also said, there's about 99% of the population that will never understand what it's like to do what we did, and I'm extremely proud. As little as it may seem, we weren't, like he said, a big band, but in my mind, we were exactly where we needed to be and did exactly what we needed to do.
Thank you, dude, so much for coming on and doing this. You guys turned out to be really awesome. I was not expecting to like you guys so much, so that's a big surprise.
Well, thank you for having us, and I'm glad you do not hate us. That's good.
Yeah.
On the
And
contrary,
very uncommon.
Yeah, on the contrary, you guys have been a lot of fun. So thanks again, and I hope everyone will go check out your stuff. So any other thing you guys want to add before we call it a day?
I don't know, man. What do you think, Terry?
I mean, I'm extremely honored and humbled that anyone even cares to hear about our silly band. I mean, like I said, William Bonney was just we were a band that knew 4 songs, one of them being Memphis Shall Be Laid to Waste. and people just care about that one breakdown still, and I'm not upset about that. I think that's awesome. Like, someone liked a piece of music that we wrote, and that's cool. And, you know, just thank you so much for having us. It really means a lot. I love talking about this stuff. In research for this episode, I got to hear some material I haven't heard in 13 years, and it was really cool. It brought back a lot. But Chance and I had talked off camera, and it's interesting because we've been in bands together now for how long, Chance? 15, 16 years?
It's been literally half our lives now, you know.
And it's weird to whittle that down to a few handful of songs, but it's also really cool. I don't know, it's really cool to hear that evolution and to hear those songs and bring back all those memories. It was all really, really awesome. So thank you for allowing us to travel down memory lane a bit.
My pleasure,
Yeah.
man.
Definitely had a lot of nostalgia with it.
All right. Thank you guys so much. And keep in touch, all right?
For sure.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.
Have a good one, man.
You too.
See ya.
Later.
That was such a fun episode. Thank you so much for checking us out. If you haven't already, please take a few seconds to go and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and leave us a review on iTunes. If you're in a band and you haven't checked out BandSource yet, you're crazy. They do non-exclusive booking and promoting at an affordable price for your band. Just go to yourbandsource.com. They help with the business of your band, and they book shows and festivals that are cool as fuck. I've got one more episode to share with you before this season comes to an end. Mark Garza was the drummer for Embodiment, a band that transcended many genres, and a personal hero of mine. You are not going to want to miss his episode. That's next episode on the Bandology podcast.